The office on the 87th floor of Kimura Holdings radiated power through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Los Angeles stretched out like a carpet of twinkling lights under the hazy October sky. Daisuke Kimura, at 40, gazed out at the city he considered his own private kingdom. His fingers drummed on the mahogany table as he waited for the call that would change his life. The phone rang at precisely 1845. Dr. Hammond, one of the most renowned fertility specialists in the country, wasn't usually late. Daisuke activated the speakerphone, his controlled voice masking the anxiety that had been consuming him for weeks. "Mr. Kimura, I have your test results." Daisuke adjusted his Japanese silk tie, an automatic gesture from someone used to maintaining his composure in any situation. "Go ahead." "Doctor, I'm sorry to inform you, but the results are conclusive. Your condition is irreversible. You are sterile." The silence that followed was deafening. Daisuke felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. His hands, normally steady when signing multi-million-dollar contracts, trembled slightly. There must be some mistake. His voice came out rougher than usual. "Run the tests again." "Mr. Kimura, we've carried out every possible procedure multiple times. The condition is—" "How much?" Daisuke interrupted abruptly. "How much? How much do I need to pay to solve it? Name your price, doctor. There must be some experimental treatment, some research in progress." The doctor's reply was full of regret. "Sir, there are things that all the money in the world can't buy. There are alternatives we can discuss, such as adoption or—" Daisuke hung up the phone with an abrupt movement. Adoption. The word sounded like a bad joke. The Kimura lineage couldn't end like this. His father had built an empire from nothing, and Daisuke had turned it into a global force. For what? To die without leaving an heir? He stood up abruptly, his silhouette reflected in the glass of the window. The man staring back at him looked like a stranger, gray at the temples, brown eyes marked by deep dark circles, the tense jaw of someone carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He grabbed his coat and the keys to his Lexus LC500. He needed to get out. He needed to move. The private elevator took him directly to the underground garage, where his car was waiting, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The rain was starting to fall as he sped through the streets of Los Angeles. His thoughts were a whirlwind. Years of meticulous planning, of building a legacy, were crumbling before his eyes. Control, his trademark, flowed through his fingers like water. At an intersection, the red light flashed. Daisuke barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere, reliving the doctor's words in an endless loop. The sleepless nights had taken a toll. Ever since the diagnosis, he'd struggled to sleep more than a few hours, each night haunted by thoughts of failure and legacy. His body ached from the fatigue, and his nerves frayed under the constant pressure. The doctor had mentioned anxiety, but Daisuke had brushed it off. Now his heartbeat was erratic, his breath shallow, and his grip on controls slipping. The sound of honking brought him back to reality, but it was too late. The impact was brutal. Metal twisted, glass shattered. The world spun in slow motion. The Lexus LC500 spun around several times before coming to a stop, completely destroyed against a lamppost. The last thing Daisuke saw before losing consciousness was a face. A black woman with determined, gentle eyes was approaching the wreckage. She was shouting something, but he couldn't understand. The rain continued to fall, washing away the blood dripping from his forehead. "Hang in there," she shouted, her voice penetrating the fog that was beginning to envelop his mind. "I'm going to get you out of there." The smell of gasoline and burning rubber filled the air. Daisuke tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. The woman, oblivious to the danger, worked frantically to open the destroyed door. Her fingers bled from the effort, but she didn't give up. "My name is Jada," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "You'll be fine, I promise." It was the first time in years that Daisuke had heard a promise, and inexplicably believed it. Then darkness enveloped him completely. The smell of antiseptic was the first thing Daisuke registered as he regained consciousness. His eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the fluorescent light of the hospital room. A heart monitor marked his rhythm in constant beeps, like a metronome controlling the time of his recovery. "Welcome back, Mr. Kimura." The nurse's soft voice sounded nearby. "You gave us quite a scare, sir." Daisuke tried to move, but every muscle in his body protested. Bandages covered his torso, and a heavy plaster cast immobilized his right leg. Fragments of the accident began to emerge. The rain, the impact, and a face. The woman. His voice came out hoarse, almost unrecognizable. "Where is the woman who helped me?" The nurse adjusted the IV before answering. "Jada Wilson. She saved your life, Mr. Kimura. The car started on fire seconds after she pulled you out of the wreckage. It was a real miracle." Jada Wilson. The name echoed in his mind like a prayer. Amid the confusion of hazy memories, her determined eyes remained clear, like a beacon in the darkness. "I need to see her." Daisuke tried to sit up, but a wave of pain forced him back onto the pillows. "You need to rest." The nurse was firm. The nurse was firm. "Besides, Miss Wilson has already been discharged. She had a few cuts on her hands, nothing serious." The next few hours became an endless parade of doctors, tests, and calls from worried executives. His personal assistant, Yuna Takeda, showed up with a pile of documents that demanded his immediate attention. "The board is in an uproar," Yuna reported, her heels echoing around the room as she organized papers. The shares fell 3% when news of the accident leaked out. Daisuke barely listened. His thoughts kept returning to Jada, to the way she had risked her life for a stranger. In his world of contracts and negotiations, gestures of genuine altruism were a rarity. "Yuna," he interrupted her monologue about the council's concerns, "I need you to locate someone." "Jada Wilson, the woman from the accident." Yuna frowned. "We've already taken care of that, sir. We've sent a generous check as a thank you." "A check?" The indignation in his voice surprised even him. "She saved my life, Yuna. That's not something you can make up for with money." The words hit him with unexpected force. He, who had always believed that everything had a price, was questioning his own philosophy of life. In the weeks that followed, his physical recovery progressed, but something inside him remained unsettled. His nights were filled with nightmares in which he relived the accident, always waking up the moment Jada appeared. During the day, between physiotherapy sessions and meetings via video conference, his mind wandered to the news that had triggered everything. His sterility. "You look different," observed Dr. Martinez, his physiotherapist, during a particularly difficult session. "More contemplative." Daisuke tried a step without the support of the parallel bars, feeling his legs tremble with the effort. Almost dying tends to have that effect on people. "It's not just that," the doctor insisted, supporting him as he staggered. "There's something else." There was, indeed. The experience of total impotence, of having his life in the hands of a stranger, had shaken his certainties. Control, which had always been his safe haven, now seemed like an illusion. One afternoon, while reviewing reports in his hospital room, Yuna entered with a peculiar expression. "I've found Jada Wilson," she announced, consulting her tablet. "She works as a teacher in a public school in South Central. She lives alone, no children. She has an interesting history of volunteer work in shelters." Daisuke closed his laptop. "Schedule a visit as soon as I'm discharged." "Sir," Yuna hesitated. She refused the check. She returned it without opening the envelope. An involuntary smile formed on Daisuke's lips. Of course she had refused. Jada Wilson was not someone who could be reduced to a financial transaction. On the eve of his discharge, Daisuke was on the hospital balcony, leaning on a cane, when a nurse handed him something. A small wooden cross found among his belongings from the day of the accident. "Miss Wilson left this," the nurse explained. "She said it was for protection." Daisuke held the simple object, feeling its rough texture. It was a modest gift, but loaded with meaning. In his world of luxury and ostentation, that small gesture of genuine care shone like a diamond among colored glass. That night, alone in his room, Daisuke Kimura, the man who had built his life on a foundation of control and power, admitted for the first time that perhaps there were miracles that money couldn't buy. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most valuable lesson fate could teach him. South Central pulsed with a different energy from downtown Los Angeles. Daisuke watched the cityscape through the window of his armored Mercedes, noticing the stark differences between this neighborhood and his corporate world. Children played on the sidewalks. Street vendors advertised their wares. A sense of community permeated the air. Public School 192 was a red brick building that had seen better days. Daisuke adjusted his cane, still necessary after 2 months of recovery, and dismissed his driver. Wait here, Akio. The school corridor echoed with children's voices and distant laughter. A secretary guided him to the teacher room where Jada Wilson was organizing student work. She looked up, surprised by his presence. Mr. Kimura? Her voice was exactly as he remembered it, firm and gentle. I didn't expect to see you here. Jada was wearing a simple pencil skirt and a navy blue blouse, her curly hair tied up in an elegant bun. There was a natural dignity in her posture that commanded respect. I needed to thank you in person, Daisuke replied, feeling strangely nervous, and apologized for the check. It was inappropriate. A subtle smile played on Jada's lips. I don't need rewards for doing the right thing, Mr. Kimura. Daisuke, please. The moment was interrupted by a sudden dizziness that hit him. Jada reacted quickly, offering him a chair. You're still recovering, she observed, concerned. I'm fine, he assured her, but his face was pale. In fact, I'd like to invite you to dinner, as an appropriate thank you. Jada hesitated, studying him with those piercing eyes. It's not necessary. Please, Daisuke insisted. No pretensions, no hidden agendas, just two people sharing a meal. After a moment's consideration, Jada nodded. Fine, but I choose the place. The restaurant Jada selected was a small, family-run establishment in the heart of South Central. Nothing like the starred restaurants Daisuke frequented, but there was a welcoming authenticity to the atmosphere. Over dinner, the conversation flowed naturally. Jada talked about her work as a teacher, her students, her dreams of making a difference in the community. Daisuke found himself fascinated by her passion and determination. Why did you risk yourself like that? He finally asked, the question that had been plaguing him for months. The car could have exploded. Jada paused, her fork hanging in the air, because it was the right thing to do. We don't always need complex reasons for our actions, Daisuke. The simplicity of her answer touched him deeply. In his world of hidden motivations and power plays, Jada's honesty was refreshing. It was then that she began to look uncomfortable, putting a hand to her stomach. Sorry, she mumbled, standing up abruptly. I need to go to the bathroom. Daisuke watched her walk away, worried. When she returned, her face was pale. Is everything all right? He asked. Jada hesitated, biting her lower lip. Not really. There's something I need to tell you. She took a deep breath before continuing. I'm pregnant. Twins. The world seemed to stop. Daisuke felt the air escape from his lungs as if he had been punched. I found out a few weeks ago, Jada continued, her voice trembling slightly. I'm still processing the news. Dad, Daisuke began, but Jada interrupted him. He's not in the picture, and I prefer it that way. A heavy silence settled between them. Daisuke struggled to process the information, memories of his own inability to have children mixing with inexplicable emotion. I'm not telling you this to ask for anything, Jada clarified, misinterpreting his silence. I just thought you should know. Since we've been getting closer. Let me help. The words came out before he could stop them. Jada frowned. I don't need charity, Daisuke. It's not charity, he insisted, leaning forward. It's gratitude. You saved my life, Jada. Let me repay you in some way. The rest of the dinner passed in an atmosphere charged with unspoken emotions. When they said goodbye at the restaurant door, Daisuke felt that something fundamental had changed in his world. Back at his penthouse in downtown Los Angeles, he stayed up late, gazing at the city through the windows. The news of Jada's pregnancy reverberated in his mind, mingling with his own questions about fatherhood and legacy. He picked up the small wooden cross she had given him at the hospital. Turning it between his fingers, the universe, he thought, had a peculiar sense of irony. Just when he had accepted that he would never have children, fate put a woman pregnant with twins in his path. A woman who, inexplicably, was beginning to mean more to him than anyone had in a long time. In his office, the moonlight illuminated the financial reports and contracts that had once seemed so important. Now, for the first time in his life, Daisuke Kimura wondered if he had been pursuing the wrong priorities all this time. News of the approachment between Daisuke Kimura and a teacher from South Central spread quickly through Los Angeles's elite social circles. In his office at Kimura Holdings, Daisuke faced another day of curious looks and barely concealed whispers. The Montgomerys canceled their invitation to the charity gala, Yuna informed him, depositing a pile of mail on his desk. Apparently, they're re-evaluating their associations. Daisuke continued signing documents, unperturbed. Send Lady Montgomery flowers, white roses. She's always been allergic to change. Over the last few weeks, he had developed an unofficial routine: occasional lunches with Jada, visits to the school where she taught, conversations that went on for hours. Each encounter revealed new layers of her personality, deepening his admiration for her. Daisuke, Jada said during one of their lunches, people are talking. They were in a discreet cafe in Limerick Park, far from the social spotlight. Jada looked especially beautiful that afternoon, wearing an emerald green dress that highlighted her 4-month pregnancy. Let them talk, he replied, pouring her more water. I've never cared about other people's opinions. But I do. She insisted, her eyes showing concern. Your friends, your family, they see me as an opportunist, the black pregnant teacher who hooked the billionaire. Daisuke felt a surge of anger. They don't know you. Exactly, Jada sighed. They don't know my world any more than you did until a few weeks ago. The comment hit him with unexpected force. It was true. Before the accident, he had barely known of the existence of neighborhoods like South Central, except as numbers in investment reports. That night, over dinner at his sister Naomi's mansion in Beverly Hills, the reality of Jada's words materialized. Are you being naive, Daisuke? Naomi declared, her tone distilling artificial concern. This woman obviously saw an opportunity and seized it. Don't talk about what you don't understand, Naomi, he replied, his voice dangerously calm. She's pregnant by another man, for God's sake, Naomi exploded. And you, who have always been so judicious, are throwing your reputation in the garbage can for an extraordinary woman who saved my life without asking for anything in return, he added, standing up. A woman who has more integrity in her little finger than everyone at this dinner party put together. The silence that followed was deafening. Daisuke left the mansion without looking back, ignoring his sister's pleas. In his apartment, hours later, he received a message from Jada. We need to talk. The next day, they met in a park near the school. Autumn painted the trees in shades of red and gold, a beauty that contrasted with the tension of the moment. I had an interesting visitor yesterday, Jada began, her voice controlled. Your sister, Naomi. Daisuke felt his blood run cold. What did she say? She offered me money, Jada laughed humorously, a generous compensation to get me away from you. She said she was protecting the interests of the Kimura family. I'll sort it out, Daisuke began, but Jada interrupted him. It's not that simple, Daisuke. It's not just your sister. It's a whole system that sees us as incompatible. You can ignore it, but I live it every day. Tears glistened in her eyes, but she held them back. My students ask me today if I'm going to stop being a teacher when I marry the rich man, as if that were the only possibility for someone like me. Daisuke tried to hold her hand, but she pulled back. Jada, please. I need time, she said softly. Time to think, to understand what I'm feeling. These babies, she touched her belly, deserve a mother who is strong and sure of her decisions. The autumn wind stirred the fallen leaves around them, creating little golden swirls. Daisuke felt a deep pain unlike anything he had ever experienced. How long? His voice came out hoarse. I don't know, she answered honestly, but I need to do this, for myself, for them. Watching her walk away down the park path, Daisuke understood that some obstacles couldn't be overcome with money or influence. The hardest barriers were the invisible ones built by generations of prejudice and social expectations. Back in his office, he found an envelope from the fertility clinic on his desk. Inside was more confirmation of his irreversible condition. In other times, this news would have devastated him. Now it seemed just another reminder of how life rarely goes according to plan. He picked up his phone, hesitated for a moment, then typed a message to Jada. I'll respect your time. But know that for the first time in my life, I found something that money can't buy, and I don't intend to give it up easily. Winter came to Los Angeles with unusual intensity. Daisuke watched the rain fall from the top of his office, marking a month since Jada had asked for time off, 30 days that seemed like an eternity. Mr. Kimura, Yuna interrupted his thoughts. The private investigator sent the report you requested. Daisuke hesitated before taking the envelope. He had promised to respect Jada's space, but his concern for her well-being and that of the babies led him to take a few discreet precautions. The The report revealed details that Jada had never mentioned. The only child of a nurse who died 5 years ago, she had been raised in South Central by a grandmother who had worked as a maid for 4 decades. She graduated with honors in education from UCLA, thanks to a full scholarship, and had volunteered in adult literacy programs. One detail in particular caught his eye. Jada had been engaged to Deshaun Carter, a promising lawyer who had died in a car accident 2 years ago, the same kind of accident from which she had saved him. "There's one more thing," Yuna added hesitantly. "About the twins, their father." "No," Daisuke interrupted her abruptly. "That's something Jada should choose to share, when and if she wants to." The following weeks were an exercise in self-control. Daisuke immersed himself in work, but his heart raced every time he passed through South Central or saw a pregnant woman on the street. One particularly cold afternoon, he received an unexpected phone call. "Daisuke?" Jada's voice sounded hesitant. "I need some help." 15 minutes later, he was in the emergency room at St. Jude's Hospital. Jada was sitting on a gurney, pale but conscious. "I fainted during class," she explained, embarrassed. "The doctor said it was anemia, nothing serious." "But you're scared," he added softly. Noticing how her hands were shaking, Jada nodded, silent tears streaming down her face. "Deshaun died in a hospital like this. I was pregnant at the time, but lost the baby soon after." The revelation hit Daisuke like a punch. Suddenly, so many things made sense. Her hesitation to get involved, her fear of losing the twins, the way she had saved him from the accident. "Why didn't you tell me before?" he asked gently, sitting down next to her. "Because it hurts," she replied simply. "And because I didn't want you to think I was trying to replace you." Daisuke took her hand, and this time, she didn't flinch. "Jada, look at me. You're not replacing anyone. What we have, whatever it is unique." The doctor interrupted the moment, bringing the test results. The twins were fine, but Jada would need rest and iron supplementation. "I'll take care of you," Daisuke declared when they were alone again. "Daisuke, not as your savior or protector," he clarified, "but as someone who cares. Let me help, even if only by hiring a substitute for your classes until you recover." Jada considered the offer. "My students, they'll be fine," he assured her, "and you'll be able to come back stronger for them." That evening, after leaving Jada at home, Daisuke drove to the cemetery where Deshaun was buried. He stopped in front of the simple headstone, feeling strangely connected to this man he had never met. "She still loves you," he said softly, "and she always will. I'm not here to take your place, but to create my own space in her heart, if I deserve it." In the days that followed, Daisuke established a new routine. Every morning, a delivery service left fresh breakfast and vitamins on Jada's doorstep. In the afternoon, he sent messages asking about her well-being, without pressing for long answers. A week later, he received a photo, the twins' first 3D ultrasound. His heart skipped a beat when he saw those little faces forming. "They're girls." Jada's message read, "Thought you'd like to know." Daisuke kept the image in his personal drawer, along with the wooden cross she had given him at the hospital. 2 little girls. The thought filled him with an emotion he couldn't name. That night, in his empty apartment, Daisuke reflected on how life had curious ways of healing old wounds. His inability to have biological children, which had once seemed like a curse, now seemed irrelevant when faced with the possibility of loving 2 girls who didn't carry his blood, but who already occupied an immense space in his heart. "The real legacy," he muttered to himself, "is perhaps not about passing on genes, but about passing on love." The end of January brought with it a rare winter storm for Los Angeles. Daisuke was watching the rain fall from his office window when Yuna rushed in. "Sir, the schools in South Central are closed because of the storm, including Miss Wilson's." He was already grabbing his coat before she had finished her sentence. Traffic was chaotic, but Akio, her driver, managed to maneuver the Mercedes through the flooded streets to Jada's building. He found her in her apartment, wrapped in a blanket on the sofa, correcting students' work. Her 6-month belly was now pronounced, and there was a serenity to her face that charmed him. "You didn't have to come," she said, but her smile betrayed her pleasure at seeing him. "Is the heating working properly?" he asked, noticing her proximity to the portable heater. "It is," she hesitated, "but the girls seem especially agitated by the cold." As if in response, a visible movement rippled under her blouse. Daisuke was fascinated. "Can I?" he asked hesitantly, holding out his hand. Jada nodded, guiding his hand to her belly. The moment he felt the first kick was indescribable. An instant connection formed, making his heart soar. "This is Lily," Jada smiled, moving her hand a few centimeters, "and this is Rose. They already have distinct personalities." "Flowers," Daisuke murmured. "Perfect names." "They were the last words I exchanged with my mother," Jada explained softly. "She was in the hospital, and I had brought lilies and roses to her room. She said they would be beautiful names for granddaughters." Daisuke sat down next to her, still amazed by the baby's movements. "Tell me more about your mother." Over the next few hours, as the rain continued to fall outside, Jada shared stories of her childhood. About how her mother worked double shifts at the hospital to ensure her education, about the nights her grandmother would tell her stories of her youth in the South while braiding her hair. "You know what's funny?" Jada said, tears in her eyes. "I always thought I'd be alone when this moment came. Pregnant without my mother, without my grandmother." "You're not alone," Daisuke said with conviction. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the soft sound of the heater and the occasional movements of the babies. "Daisuke," Jada began hesitantly, "there's something I need to tell you about the girl's father." He felt his body tense, but remained calm. "Only if you want to." "It was one night," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "A few months after the anniversary of Deshawn's death, I was lost. I ran into an old friend of his in a bar. We drank, talked about Deshawn, about loss." Daisuke held her hand, encouraging her to continue. "The next morning, he was gone. He left a note saying he was moving to Seattle, that he couldn't deal with the memories of Deshawn in LA. She laughed humorously. "I don't even know if he knows about the girls." "Do you want him to know?" Daisuke asked softly. Jada shook her head. "No, that night was about grief, not love. The girls deserve better than that." At that moment, as if feeling their mother's emotion, the twins began to move more intensely. Daisuke instinctively began to make gentle circles on Jada's belly, and surprisingly, the babies calmed down. "They love you," Jada smiled through her tears. "And I already love them." The words came out naturally, surprising them both. The rest of the afternoon passed in a bubble of intimacy. Daisuke prepared hot chocolate in Jada's small kitchen, while she told him about the little names she was considering for the girls. When evening came and the rain began to subside, Daisuke realized that something fundamental had changed. It wasn't just about him and Jada now, it was about Lily and Rose too, about family, about belonging. "Stay," Jada said softly as he prepared to leave. "The storm's still strong, and I feel safe with you here." That night, sleeping on the sofa that was too small for his body, Daisuke had a vivid dream. He was in a garden full of lilies and roses, and two little girls were running toward him, calling him father. He woke up with tears in his eyes, realizing that his heart had already made a decision that his mind was still processing. The news exploded one morning in March, like a bomb. Billionaire Daisuke Kimura assumes romance with South Central teacher. The photo accompanying the headline showed Daisuke and Jada leaving a prenatal appointment, their hands entwined, his face protective as he guided her through a group of photographers. "We've already identified who leaked the information," Yuna reported, depositing several tabloids on his desk. "It was someone from the hospital." Daisuke barely listened. His eyes were fixed on his cell phone, where messages from Jada were flashing urgently. "Reporters. At the school. I can't teach. The students are scared." "Akio," he called to his driver over the intercom. "Get the car ready, now." Daisuke's arrival at Public School 192 only intensified the chaos. Photographers and reporters crowded around the gates, shouting invasive questions. "Mr. Kimura, are the babies yours? Is it true you're paying for the pregnancy? How much is this romance costing you?" He found Jada in her classroom, trembling, while the principal tried to calm her down. "Get me out of here," she whispered when she saw him. On the way to the car, protected by Daisuke's security guards, Jada kept her head down, a protective hand over her 7-month belly. The twins, as if sensing her distress, moved restlessly. "My apartment," Daisuke instructed Akio. "It's the safest place now." Once in the sanctuary of his penthouse, Jada finally collapsed. They're turning my life into a circus, she screamed, tears of rage streaming down her face. Making up stories, speculating about the girls, my students had to see that. Daisuke tried to hug her, but she pulled away. Don't you see, that's exactly what I was afraid of. Her voice trembled. Now I'm the fortune hunter, the pregnant opportunist. Years of building my reputation as an educator, and in one day. We could sue the newspapers, he began, but Jada interrupted him with a bitter laugh. Sue? Daisuke, don't you understand yet? It's not about money or lawsuits. It's about dignity, about being able to walk down the street without being harassed, about my students not having to listen to nasty comments about their teacher. She walked over to the window, watching the city below. Do you know what hurts me the most? The racist comments. The black girl who hooked the Asian billionaire. As if I were some kind of... Her voice failed her, and this time when Daisuke hugged her, she couldn't resist. I'm sorry, he murmured into her hair. I'm sorry I didn't see it coming, that I didn't protect you better. It's not your fault, she sighed. It's the world we live in. That night, after Jada had finally fallen asleep in one of the guest rooms, Daisuke made a series of phone calls to his legal team demanding action against the most aggressive tabloids, to media contacts setting clear boundaries, to the school ensuring additional security. But it was the last call that upset him the most. So you're destroying this family, Naomi declared as soon as she picked up. Mom is devastated. Our mother died 15 years ago, Naomi, he replied coldly. And as for destroying the family, maybe it's time to build a new one. With her. Daisuke, be reasonable. The board is in an uproar. Stocks are plummeting. Investors are questioning your judgment. You know what? He interrupted her. For the first time in my life, I don't care about any of that. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Do you really love her? It wasn't a question. More than I thought I could, he admitted. And those girls, Naomi, when I feel them moving, when I hear their hearts beating on the ultrasounds, they're not yours, his sister said softly. They're mine, in the only sense that matters, he replied, in the heart. After hanging up, Daisuke returned to the room where Jada was sleeping. In the dark, he could make out the outline of her belly under the sheets. He sat down in the armchair next to the bed, determined to protect her sleep. Hours later, Jada woke up startled. Daisuke? She called out in the dark. I'm here. The girls, she took his hand, placing it on her stomach. They're dancing. In the silence of the early morning, feeling the twins' movements under his palm, Daisuke made a decision. No matter what the cost to his reputation or fortune, he would protect this family that fate had given him, not out of obligation or guilt, but out of love. The kind of love that transcends blood and surnames. We'll face this together, he promised, one day at a time. Jada entwined her fingers with his, and there, in the dark, with Lily and Rose dancing under their joined hands, they found a moment of peace in the midst of the storm. The meeting room on the 47th floor of Kimura Holdings was packed. Board members, majority shareholders, and lawyers occupied every available seat. At the center of all the attention, Daisuke remained impassive while presentations detailing the fall in the company's shares flashed on the screen. The losses are significant, Harold Whitman, chairman of the board, pointed to the red graphs. Our East Asian investors are especially concerned about Mr. Besfor, Kimura's personal distraction. Distraction? Daisuke arched an eyebrow. Is that what we're calling my personal life now? Daisuke, Naomi interjected, her voice tense. Be reasonable. The company's image is tied to my professional competence, he cut in, which remains unshaken. Harold sniffed, uncomfortable. There's a simple solution. Ms. Wilson has already turned down several generous offers to step aside discreetly. We can increase the amount. The silence that followed was icy. Daisuke stood up slowly, his dark eyes fixed on Harold. Let me clarify something. His voice was dangerously calm. Jada and the twins are not in negotiations. If anyone in this room dares approach her again with offers, it will be the last thing they do in this company. You can't threaten the board, Naomi protested. It's not a threat, Daisuke smiled coldly. It's a promise. And since we're discussing the company's image, he gestured, and Yuna entered with a new presentation. This is the project I've been developing over the last few months. A scholarship program for public school teachers focused on underprivileged areas. Jada helped me structure it. The numbers began to appear on the screen: investments in education, positive media returns, social impact projections. "We'll turn a scandal into a revolutionary social responsibility initiative," he continued. "East Asian investors love that sort of thing, don't they, Harold?" The meeting ended in a tense stalemate. As the executives left, Naomi grabbed her brother's arm. "What's happened to you?" she asked, her voice a mixture of concern and incredulity. "I grew up," he replied simply. That afternoon, Daisuke drove to South Central. Jada had returned to work, now protected by discreet security guards. He found her in her empty classroom, organizing student work. "How was the meeting?" she asked, noticing his expression. "I survived," he smiled, kissing her softly. "Are the girls behaving today?" "Rose is restless." Jada stroked her belly. "Lily's asleep, as usual after lunch." Daisuke knelt down, pressing his ear against her belly. "Hey, little Rose, giving mommy a hard time?" The moment was interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Melissa, one of Jada's students. "Miss Wilson." The girl hesitated when she saw Daisuke. "I'm sorry, can I come in?" "Come in, Melissa." Jada smiled warmly. "Mr. Kimura doesn't bite." The girl entered shyly, holding a piece of paper. "It's just that I wrote an essay about family, and I wanted you to read it first." Jada took the paper, her eyes scanning the words. Tears began to form. "Melissa, this is..." She couldn't finish. Daisuke took the essay gently. It was a story about different kinds of families, about how love didn't have to follow rules or traditions. The girl had used Jada and him as an example. "Some idiots at school said bad things," Melissa explained, blushing, "about you and Mr. Kimura, but I told them they didn't understand anything about real love." Jada hugged her student, crying openly now. Daisuke felt his own heart squeeze. Later at home, Jada reread the essay several times. "You know what's amazing?" she said, snuggling into Daisuke's arms. "A 12-year-old schoolgirl understands more about love and acceptance than all that advice full of adults." "Speaking of which," Daisuke hesitated, "I have something to show you." He presented the plans for the scholarship program, explaining how she had inspired him to create something meaningful. "You're using our relationship to do something good?" she realized, amazed. "I learned from the best," he smiled. "Besides, our daughters deserve to see that they can make a difference in the world." Jada froze. "Did you say our daughters?" "Yes." He held up his hands. "If you allow it, I want to be their father. Not just on paper, but in every way that matters." The tears returned to Jada's eyes, but this time of happiness. "The girls have already chosen," she laughed between sobs. "They always calm down when they hear your voice." That night, lying in bed, planning for the future, Daisuke reflected on how his life had changed. The worries about legacy and succession that had plagued him so much now seemed so superficial. His true legacy was there, in the love he felt for Jada, and in the two little lives he already considered his daughters. The 8th month of pregnancy arrived with an unprecedented heat wave in Los Angeles. Jada, now away from school due to maternity leave, was restless in the apartment Daisuke had insisted she temporarily occupy, closer to the hospital. "The girls are restless today," she commented over breakfast, watching Daisuke adjust his tie. "More than usual." He kissed her forehead before leaving. "Get some rest. Yuna canceled all my afternoon appointments. I'll be back early." But fate had other plans. At 2:37 p.m., during a crucial meeting with Japanese investors, Daisuke received a message that made his blood run cold. "Contractions have started. Hospital now. 2 months ahead of schedule." The chaos that followed was a blur. Daisuke barely registered the shocked faces of the executives as he rushed out of the room. In the elevator, his hands were shaking so badly he could barely dial Akio's number. "I've got her, sir," his driver informed him. "Dr. Reeves will meet us at Good Samaritan." Traffic was impossible due to the extreme heat. Accidents blocked the main roads, and a demonstration was further complicating matters. "How long?" Daisuke asked Yuna over the phone while his private helicopter was being prepared. 30 minutes to the nearest helipad to the hospital," she replied. "Jada is fine, but the contractions are increasing." At the hospital, Jada was fighting panic. The doctor's words echoed in her mind: premature birth, risk, need constant monitoring. "Daisuke," she whispered between contractions. "I need him here." The nurse held her hand. "He's on his way, darling. Take a deep breath." The minutes dragged on like hours. The twins' heart monitors showed worrying changes. Blood pressure rising, a nurse warned. Dr. Reeves looked at the data with a grave expression. We need to do an emergency C-section. We can't wait. No, Jada protested. Daisuke needs to be here. He promised. Another contraction hit her, stronger than the previous ones. The monitors began beeping frantically. Lily is in pain, the doctor announced. We have no choice. In the helicopter, Daisuke was receiving real-time updates. Each new report increased his anguish. Faster, he ordered the pilot, ignoring flight regulations. When he finally arrived at the hospital, he was greeted by Yuna, her face pale. They're already in the operating room, she informed him, rushing to his side. Jada had a complication. Daisuke felt his world spin. Memories of his own mother, who died giving birth to a younger brother who also didn't survive, flooded his mind. No, he muttered. I can't lose them, none of them. The medical team allowed him into the operating room after a quick preparation. Jada was conscious but visibly frightened. I'm sorry, she cried when he held her hand. I tried to wait. Shh. He kissed her forehead through the surgical mask. You're the strongest person I know. The three of you are going to be fine. The next few minutes were tense. The silence in the room was broken only by the sound of the equipment and Dr. Reeves's precise instructions. First baby, the doctor announced. Lily arrived in absolute silence. Why isn't she crying? Jada asked in a panic. The neonatal team worked frantically. Eternal seconds passed before a weak but determined cry filled the room. Rose followed, her protests immediate and forceful. Typical, Jada laughed through her tears. Lily was always the quiet one. But the joy was short-lived. Jada began to show signs of bleeding. Pressure dropping, someone shouted. Mr. Kimura, you need to leave. Now. A nurse pushed him toward the door. No, Jada, Daisuke, she called weakly. Take care of our girls. The next 2 hours were the longest of his life. Daisuke alternated between the neonatal ICU, where his daughters were struggling in incubators, and the operating room corridor, where Jada was fighting for her life. Lily, the smallest of the twins, needed respiratory support. Rose, although stronger, had cardiac arrhythmia. I spoke to specialists in Boston and London, Yuna said, coordinating an international network of doctors. The best teams are on standby. Finally, Dr. Reeves emerged from the operating room, exhausted but smiling. She's a fighter, she announced. The bleeding is under control. Daisuke collapsed into a chair, tears flowing freely. Hours later, when Jada finally woke up in the ICU, she found Daisuke holding her hand, his face marked by tiredness and worry. The girls? Was his first question. They're warriors, like their mother. He smiled, showing her photos on his cell phone, small but determined. We need to be strong for them, Jada whispered. You three are my strength, Daisuke replied, his voice breaking. And I promise, I'll never be late for anything important in your lives again. The days in the neonatal ICU became a routine of hope and apprehension. Daisuke divided the 10th floor of Good Samaritan into 2 wards, one for Jada, who was still recovering, and one for the twins. Their team of specialists worked in shifts, monitoring every breath, every heartbeat of the little warriors. Lily has responded well to the new treatment, Dr. Martinez, the chief neonatologist, explained during the morning visit. Her oxygen levels are gradually improving. Daisuke watched his infant daughter through the glass of the incubator. At just 4 pounds, Lily seemed impossibly fragile, but there was a quiet determination in her fight for life that moved him deeply. And Rose? Jada asked from the wheelchair that Daisuke insisted she use during visits. She still has arrhythmia, but she's more stable, the doctor smiled. She has a strong personality. Yesterday she had her heart sensor removed 3 times. Just like her mother, Daisuke teased, earning a feigned indignant look from Jada. Recovery was a slow process, marked by small daily victories. Every gram gained was celebrated. Every improvement in the tests was seen as a battle won. One afternoon, while Jada was resting, Daisuke had an idea. He consulted the medical team and, with their approval, began a special ritual. What are you doing? Jada asked when she found him in the neonatal ICU late at night, reading, quietly, to the twins. He showed her the book, The Little Prince. My mother used to read it to me when I was sick. I thought. His voice faltered slightly. Jada moved closer, resting her head on his shoulder. Go on. They recognize your voice. It was true. During their nightly readings, the monitors showed the babies calming down, their heartbeats stabilizing at the sound of his voice. Days turned into weeks. Rose was the first to be able to breathe unaided, her strength surprising even the most experienced doctors. Lily, although progressing more slowly, showed a quiet resilience that reminded Daisuke of Jada. "She has your eyes," Jada commented one day, watching Lily through the glass. "That same determined look." "It's her eyes," Daisuke corrected softly, "and her strength." News of the twins' condition had leaked to the press, but this time, the reaction was different. Letters of support started arriving at the hospital. Parents who had been through similar situations shared their stories. Jada's students sent drawings and cards to their little warrior sisters. Even Naomi showed up one afternoon, carrying 2 small teddy bears. "They're anti-allergenic," she explained, embarrassed. "I researched what was suitable for premature babies." The gesture, though simple, meant a lot. It was the first step toward acceptance. After a month, Rose was strong enough to have her first skin-to-skin contact with Jada. Daisuke filmed the moment, silent tears streaming down his face as he watched mother and daughter reconnect. "Your turn, Daddy." The nurse smiled a few days later, helping him position Lily on his chest. The feeling was indescribable. The little one snuggled against him, her tiny heart beating close to his. At that moment, Daisuke fully understood what it meant to be a father. "I spoke to the council today," he told Jada later. "I'm going to take a 6-month leave when the girls are discharged." "Daisuke? It's non-negotiable." He smiled. "I've wasted too many moments focusing only on work. I won't make the same mistake with our daughters." The transformation from powerful CEO to devoted father did not go unnoticed by the hospital staff. The nurses smiled as they watched him change tiny diapers with the same concentration he used in million-dollar negotiations. One evening, while reading another chapter of The Little Prince, Daisuke noticed something different. Lily had opened her eyes and was watching him intently. "Jada," he called softly. "Look." It was the first real eye contact with the smallest of the twins. Her eyes, a perfect blend of Jada's and his, seemed to contain all the wisdom in the world. "Hi, Princess," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Daddy's here." In response, Lily wrapped her tiny hand around his little finger. The heart monitor registered a perfectly rhythmic beat. "It's official." Jada laughed through her tears. "She's definitely a Kimura, always getting what she wants." Daisuke kissed the top of Jada's head, his heart overflowing with love for his family. There, in the quiet of the neonatal ICU, between the beeps of monitors and the soft hum of incubators, he found a fundamental truth. The greatest miracles come in small packages, and the strongest love is born in the toughest battles. After 2 months in the hospital, the twins were finally discharged. The day dawned sunny, as if the sky itself was celebrating the occasion. Daisuke personally supervised every detail of their departure from the hospital, while Jada dressed the girls in the outfits their school class had given them, pink jumpsuits for Rose and lilac ones for Lily. "They look so small in their car seats," Jada commented, adjusting the delicate bow in Rose's curly hair. "But they're the strongest I've ever met," Daisuke replied, watching Lily sleep serenely. The journey home was a carefully planned event. Kenji drove with extraordinary caution, as if he were carrying the world's most precious treasure. And in a way, he was. "Ready?" Daisuke asked when they arrived at the new apartment. Jada hesitated. She hadn't yet seen the place he had chosen for them, insisting on keeping it a surprise. When the door opened, she lost her breath. The apartment was a spacious duplex overlooking Central Park, but what thrilled her wasn't the luxury. It was the attention to detail. The walls of the girls' bedroom were decorated with a hand-painted mural depicting the night sky. Tiny stars twinkled softly on the ceiling. "The Little Prince," she whispered, recognizing the inspiration. "So that they always remember that dreams have no limits," Daisuke explained, cradling Lily. The room had 2 handmade cribs, each with a different mobile, Rose's for Rose and Lily's for Lily. A breastfeeding armchair was strategically placed near the window overlooking the park. But it was a specific detail that brought tears to Jada's face. On a wall framed was Melissa's essay on different types of families. "Daisuke." "Wait," he smiled, handing Lily to her. "There's something else." In the office, an entire wall had been transformed into a library. Jada recognized many of the titles she used to use in her classes. "This is your space," he explained, "for when you go back to teaching, preparing your lessons, or simply reading." Go back to teaching? She asked in surprise. I'd never expect you to stop working, he added softly. Jada, your work is part of who you are. The girls need to see their mother fulfilling her dreams. At that moment, as if in agreement, both babies began to cry, hungry. The next few days were an adjustment to the new routine. Daisuke surprised everyone, especially himself, with his dedication to the most basic care. He changed diapers with surgical precision, prepared bottles in the middle of the night, and had developed his own technique for burping Rose. You're a natural at it, Jada commented one evening, finding him humming softly to Lily. I have good teachers, he smiled, watching his daughter fall asleep. The powerful CEO's transformation was the topic of conversation all over New York. Photos of him carrying the twins in the park or pushing the double stroller circulated on social media, generating a surprising wave of public support. One afternoon, while the girls were asleep, Jada found Daisuke in his office, concentrating on documents. What's this? She asked, noticing his serious expression. Adoption papers, he replied. Simply, if you agree. Jada sat down, moved. Daisuke, you don't have to. Yes, I do, he interrupted her gently. Not out of obligation, but because they're already my daughters in every way that matters. I want to make it official, and if one day they want to know about it, we'll be honest, he assured her. We'll tell them that they were conceived in a moment of pain, but born into a love greater than any expectation. That family is not defined by blood, but by daily choices of love and dedication. Jada picked up the pen, her hands trembling slightly. Are you sure? In response, Rose's cry echoed through the apartment, followed immediately by Lily. I always knew you'd be close, Jada laughed, standing up. The timing is impressive, Daisuke agreed, following her into the girls' bedroom. As they looked after the babies together, Daisuke observed his family. Rose, with her vibrant personality, was already showing signs of being a force of nature. Lily, more contemplative, had a unique way of communicating her desires with a simple look. What are you thinking about? Jada asked, noticing his smile. About how unpredictable life is, he replied. A year ago, I was obsessed with having an heir for my empire. Today, I realize the real legacy isn't in business, it's in moments like this. Jada kissed his cheek softly. You're an incredible father, Daisuke Kimura. And you, he hugged her, careful not to disturb Lily, who was breastfeeding, are the best thing that has ever happened in my life. You and our little warriors. Outside, the sun was setting over New York, painting the sky in shades of pink and lilac, like a blessing for this family, built not by fate or blood, but by choices of love. 1 year later, the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel had been transformed into a fairy tale. Little lights twinkled like stars on the ceiling, and tables decorated with roses and lilies created a magical atmosphere for the twins' first birthday. Mommy, Rose called out, her curls swaying as she tried to take her first steps toward Jada. Lily, sitting next to Daisuke, watched her sister with contemplative eyes, still preferring to crawl with calculated precision rather than risk walking. Just like Dad, Jada teased, picking Rose up onto her lap, always taking risks. And Lily is you in miniature, Daisuke replied, admiring how his youngest daughter methodically stacked colored blocks, planning every move. The party brought together an eclectic group. Executives from Kimura Global mingled with teachers from Jada's school, creating a unique atmosphere of celebration. Jada's students, now in their final year, had prepared a special presentation for the little sisters of the class. Naomi, who had initially resisted the idea of an ordinary party, now couldn't get enough of her niece. Rose has her mommy's smile. She beamed. She commented excitedly, watching her niece play. The biggest surprise of the afternoon came when Melissa, the student whose essay had touched their hearts a year earlier, took to the makeshift stage. A year ago, she began, her voice trembling slightly, I wrote about how love doesn't follow rules. Today, looking at the Kimura Wilson family, I see that I was right. Love is a choice. It's waking up every day and deciding to love, even when it's hard. Daisuke squeezed Jada's hand, remembering the challenging moments of the last year, the sleepless nights, the worries about every little fever, the constant adjustments to their routines. So, Melissa continued, I want to announce that I've been accepted to NYU on a full scholarship. I'm going to study education, like Miss Wilson, because I've learned that we can change the world, one classroom at a time. The applause was interrupted by the distinctive sound of small, hesitant footsteps. Everyone turned to see Lily, finally determined, taking her first steps, striding toward her sister. "Lee!" Rose shouted enthusiastically, holding out her arms. The twins met in the middle of the hall, collapsing together in contagious laughter. The moment perfectly captured their essence. Different in personality, but inseparable in love. Later, after the party, in the quiet of their apartment, Daisuke found Jada on the balcony, watching the city. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, hugging her from behind. "How life twists and turns," she replied. "A year ago I was terrified in a hospital, praying that our girls would survive. Today we're a family," he added. "An unconventional family," she smiled. "The best kind of family," Daisuke corrected, turning her to face him. "Jada Wilson, marry me." The proposal, although expected, took her by surprise. "Daisuke, not because of social convention or expectations," he continued, "but because I want to wake up every day next to you. I want another 100 years of moments like today. I want." He was interrupted by the twins crying simultaneously. "Their timing is still impeccable," Jada laughed. In the girls' room, they found Rose trying to climb into the crib, while Lily watched her with comic disapproval. "Well?" Daisuke asked as he helped Jada calm the babies down. "Are you going to keep me in suspense?" Jada picked up the small wooden cross she still kept hanging near the cribs, the same one she had given him in the hospital after the accident. "This cross belonged to my grandmother," she explained. "She said it was a symbol that the greatest miracles come disguised as accidents of fate." She placed the cross in his hands. "Yes, Daisuke Kimura, I will marry you." The twins, as if understanding the importance of the moment, finally calmed down. Rose rested her head on Jada's shoulder while Lily played with her father's tie. Daisuke looked at his family, this perfectly imperfect unit that fate had given him. It wasn't the legacy he had imagined for himself, but it was infinitely better than any previous dream. "You know," he said softly, "that accident was the best thing that ever happened to me." Jada smiled, remembering the rainy night that had changed their lives. Sometimes we need to lose ourselves completely to find our true path. Outside, the city continued its frenetic pace, but inside that apartment, time seemed suspended in a perfect moment of happiness. The stars on the ceiling of the girls' bedroom twinkled softly, like silent witnesses that sometimes the most beautiful fairy tales are those that life writes by chance. The end. What is the true meaning of family? The ties we inherit or the ones we choose to build? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your honest opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.